Good morning, friends. Namaskar, Sat Sri Akal, and Adab. This is my 286th video, and this series will be covering definition of old Quran. What do we understand with the word old Quran? And then the same is called Quran, with the full name being called old Quran. Why are we not called Grant alone? Or if we are British grants, after 12th August 1765, we should be called new grants. So, how this all began and why am I using these words as old grants and new grants? We need to understand when the Plassey or the Buxar War was lost by the Nawabs on 22nd June 1757 due to the betrayal of his two officers, Rai Durlab Singh and Mir Jaffer. Surprisingly, Sir Siraj-ud-duala had already entered into a treaty in February 1757 with the British and had consented to purchase of the company the Talukdari rights of some more than 38 villages. Now, similarly, Mir Jaffer also gave his 24 villages. So, this war of Plassey or Buxar was never fought to win territorial sovereignty for the East India Company or for the British Crown. They were only fought to maintain the MUSNUD, the throne or the Subahdar or the Nizam. So the British Crown made treaties. Now, the treaties start from Siraj-ud-duala in February 1757, Mir Jaffer 15th July 1757, Mir Qasim 27th September 1760, Mir Jaffer 10th July 1763, and Nizam-ud-duala in February 1765. So, in this passage of time of approximately more than, let's say, 9 to 10 years, most of the treaties were done by the Britishers even after this Buxar War. So, what were the Nawabs left with? Their status was Subedar or the Nizams. There was nothing else. So, what transferred to the British or the East India Company? The East India Company took over the Diwani in perpetuity from the Nawabs of Bengal in or on 30th September 1765, to be imprecise, or we can even call it August 1765. This is very important because exactly why the government and the people say that after 200 years, 1765 August, now coming down, we go to 1865, then we go to 1965. But we got independence in August 1947. So the Diwani authorities over the provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa was conferred in perpetuity on the East India Company by a firman or a royal grant in August 1765. The Nawab of Bengal, Najumul-dul-Dawla, had already, as the conditions of his succeeding to the Muzammad on the decrees of his father Jafar Khan, agreed to entrust the administration of the Subadari to the management of a naib or a deputy appointed by the advice of the governor in council. Now, there were further agreements on 30th September 1765. The Nawab recognized the grant of the Diwani to the company and consented to accept a fixed stipend for the maintenance of himself and his household, whatever further. So, further expenses within certain limits might be found necessary for the support of the dignity of the Nizam was to be dispersed through the deputy chosen by the English government, that is the Naib. Now, what were these rights? The East India Company has been stated that East India Company, was made the Nawab Nazim, or the collecting officer for the land revenue. So during the era of Lord Clive, who was made the president of the council at Fort Williams, he made for these 16 districts in 1769 of the area under the treaty, and by 1770 formed a revenue committee, and its duty was to make settlements. Late in 1773, Revenue Board was asked to the same work of settlements. The system was called mast system, as the administration was in the hands of the British Company while maintaining the sovereignty of the Mughals. So the first settlements were made for 1 year, and they continued for the next 3 years. In 1773 to 81, first time settlements were made for 5 years. But the British Crown realized that even after 1765 to 1784, more than 20 years, settlements and revenue collections were not happening as expected, and there were flaws in the system of settlements. So, what did they do? In Bombay, the possession for it had come through how? The, to the crown as part of a wedding dowry to Queen Catherine of Braganza, and by the crown it had been granted to the company. Now, going down to the southern India, again the company held lands under grants from such sovereigns as the Zomran of Calicut, the king of Golconda, the descendants of the Vijayanagar kings and company, and the earlier struggles with the Dutch gave too many of the holdings the nature of occupation by force or international understanding. At a later date, the English possession of Madras would, in the eyes of the Court of Directors, be associated with the struggles of French either. So then came Lord Hastings in 1774, and he started actually repudiating the treaty from day one of August 1765. Now he was not in tandem with the treaty. So he wanted to defray himself from the obligations of paying in perpetuity an amount of rupees 26 lakhs to the Nawabs. Here came then the most famous court case on 20th June 1775, in which the question of Nawab's position of sovereign power was discussed. Not getting into the details, who betrayed the Nawab, what the Chief Justice and others said. Now, it is very important to hear. The Chief Justice, Sir Elijah Impey, held that the treaty with the Mubaraks was to, in reality, a surrender by him of all powers into the hands of the company. Now, what did the other justice, Sir Robert Chambers, was chiefly concerned with the question of the alleged immunity of Roy Radhachuran as an ambassador from the Nawab. The third justice, Lemster, concluded his opinion of some remarks in his characteristic style with regards to this phantom, this man of straw, whom he is addressing Mubarak ul Dawla. It is an insult to the understanding of the court to have made the question of his sovereignty. Fourth, Justice Hyde spoke almost entirely on what to us is the irrelevant question of Ray Radhachuran's position as a vakil and concurred with the Chief Justice. So the whole judgment had a conflicting opinion. They came for a reason given to say, if it be true that the sovereignty of the Mubarak ul Dawla be not admitted by the Supreme Court, we are persuaded that the Chief Justice and others of His Majesty judges will see how important it is not only to the tranquility of this country, but likewise to the preservation of the peace which subsists between the king and the European powers who are settled in this country, that we should not be left in doubt as to the right to whom the sovereignty belongs. So, friends, this is a very important para. Now, the judges are saying because the European powers have settled, that is why we say the sovereignty belongs to the East India Company. So, we now, whether were grants or not grants, whether we will be called old grants or will be called new grants, after this happening of 1765 judgment, is everything is a matter of evidence. So this 1775 judgment actually transferred the entire Buxar war into a sovereignty war, and it gave the East India Company the rights of being complete sovereigns of this nation. So this judgment was on what? On not on the farman, the evidence. It was basically to maintain tranquility and peace. Why can't we have a judgment what came in 1765, which later came for the Ayodhya Ram Janam Bhoomi Mandir? Why can't we have another judgment for these cantonments? That we are the inhabitants living here since more than 200 years. Why can't we be given these rights of ownerships on various laws which have been drafted and existed by the British itself? This is the story. So this video will be continued in parts. I'm not making it too lengthy for people. So once again, why am I saying that we are never new grants? Because we were never converted. So I think this will clear to most of my people what am I actually trying to say. Thank you.